Welcome to another episode of Sitar Gurukul. In today's episode, I'm going to discuss right from the very beginning the lessons that we have done, and I'm going to discuss how you can achieve further perfection in almost every exercise that you have collected so far through Sitar Gurukul. So, the first lesson that I showed you was seating with the sitar. Now, seating, it took me around 5 to 6 years to really figure out how to sit. So, I started uh, learning sitar when I was studying in grade 6. So, you can imagine my body wasn't the same size as it is now. At first, I was very flexible, and my overall height was uh, much smaller than I am right now. But I did have a regular size sitar. So back then, I had to adapt to a different technique. And as I grew older and I started getting heavier and losing a lot of my flexibility, of course, I had to find out newer techniques because holding the sitar was being a bit more difficult than it used to be. So, the first thing I want to clear is that what problems might appear if you sat with the sitar like the way I showed you. You might have some back pain, you might have numbness in your legs after a while after you start sitting with the sitar. Everyone has different bodies. There is no perfect way to sit with the sitar. It is perfect once you think it's perfect, so it has to be customized. So if you have my kind of a body, then you have a different seating position. If you have a much thinner body or you're much taller than I am 5 feet 8, then you might have a different kind of seating position. So the eventual goal of seating like this with the sitar is a couple of different things. One being the sitar is, as you already know, is not very heavy, but this weight can add up if you're holding on to it with the force of your arms. So sitting like this, we ensure that the sitar kind of balances on its own, and our crisscross position, especially the right kneecap, the knee or the thigh is taking care of holding the sitar up straight. So that's one thing. Now, do we always have to sit crisscross legged just to make that happen, even if we are not flexible enough? Of course not. You can always put your leg down like this and sit like this. But the main thing is that you should not have any kind of pain anywhere whatsoever. So you can customize your seating position, and I'm sure that as you spend more years with the sitar, you're going to find out newer ways, and you're going to have that light bulb effect where you think, so this is the way. And it's not a bad thing. You can always change the way you sit based on how comfortable you are. But one thing that you have to remember, that the sitar has to be at approximate 45-degree angle, because this angle comes really in handy when we start playing much more professional knees. So with that out of the way, I'm going to discuss point number 2, the lines. Now, I've seen plenty of different lines for the last couple of years, but I have never seen a more perfect line than two of my Gurujis. One of them is Pandit Ashim Chaudhuri, and the other one is Pandit Kushal Das. They have beautiful hands, and I would always stare at their hands, at their lines, and be amazed at how perfect they are. So it's a bit difficult to truly understand where and why to place the lines, especially if I can't see you. So this is where I would suggest that you start finding yourself a good teacher, because a teacher will help you with your journey, and when you interact with a teacher on a regular basis, this journey becomes that much easier. But I'll try to guide you. So it should be covering around, I'd say, just a little lower than the tip of your fingers. So I have a close-up shot of my finger lines on episode 2, so I would recommend you to go back and watch that. But the thing is that your finger line should not, it's almost straight, but it's curved around the edges. So it has to be a place where you don't have, you won't feel much pain, but at the same time you're gonna have a lot of grip. So it cannot be right at the tip of your finger, it has to be a bit lower. uh, Once that is done, since now you have been starting to do the mir practices, it is also very important that once you have a perfect or at least a satisfactory index line position, that is going to highly dictate the position of your middle finger line. So either way, the index finger line is very important. I've already received a few mails where students who are learning through these videos have already showed me their finger lines, and they're all great. If you think you have a confusion, do let me know. Just send me pictures on the given email address. With that out of the way, I'm going to talk about the right hand stroking. So I'm sure a lot of you have already had some issues with the right hand and left hand stroking. So what is the ideal sound? So to me, the ideal sound of a sitar is either the Gurujis, my teachers. One more sound that I really like is that of Ustad Shahid Parvez. And there are a couple of different other people like Pandit Budhaitya Mukherjee, whose sound I really like. I like Ustad Irshad Khan's sound. And I can keep going on and on. So each of them, even though most of them, the names that I have mentioned, belong to the Imdad Khani Gharana, each of them have their own stroking patterns, their own stroking positions. So it's really up to you on what kind of sound you're looking for. But here's one pointer. So what you're looking for is this pendulum effect. So it's not straight, because if you do it straight, what's going to happen is you're going to use the muscles of your fingers, and they're very tiny. So you're going to go very tired very soon. We don't want that. So it's kind of like this. So imagine this is one of those bulldozers. So here you have levers and not motors, and everything is controlled by here or here or here, the joints. So what you do is, this is the kind of movement you want, kind of like this. So it's a lot less of this, more of this. So these fingers, what you're looking for is that your fingers must be very relaxed. Just the fingers I'm talking about. So they should be working at their natural weight, and the weight of your fingers and the natural weight of your hands, that's what should stroke the strings like this, and that you're going to get the best kind of sound. So there's this concept called a warm tone. So it's either a sharp tone or a warm tone. Allow me to demonstrate. If I pluck the strings, you're going to get a sharp tone. So, but if I use the natural weight of my fingers, you're going to get a warmer sound, which is a more round kind of a sound. So this versus this. So in terms of musical expressions, you're going to need both, but we are going to aim for the much rounder sound, much cleaner sound, because that is more musical, and that is what you're going to be using most of the times. We are going to have specific areas where we use the hook stroke or plucking stroke, but right now that's not what we want to learn. We want to learn a more rounder sound. So as I mentioned in one of these, I believe in episode number 3, where I teach you how to stroke on your sitar, that you should be looking at your right hand while you warm up with the da da ra ra practices that we are still doing, and try to see what your hands up to, and move it around a couple of inches to the left, to the right, maybe a little bit towards the front, which may seem that it's very unusual and it's probably not the right way, but I can tell you that you're probably wrong. There are a lot of positions that may seem like it's definitely not the right thing to do, but if it sounds good and if you're comfortable, that's the only thing that matters. So use a couple of different experiments and see what results are best for you. If you're satisfied with a sound, if you already have a sound in your head of any maestro, of any ustad that is who's one of your favorites, try to replicate that sound on your sitar, and that's going to teach you a lot. keeping the stroking aside, the left hand. So the left hand is very, very important, just like the right hand. Of course, everything is important. And the left hand, you should be, as I always say, that you should be holding the fretboard as if you were holding a child's head. So the first mark on your thumb, I'm counting from the top. So the first mark, that should be parallel to your index finger's line. So kind of like this. So you shouldn't have bulges anywhere. It should be very relaxed like this. And you should have this gap right here. And that gap should not only appear when you're pulling mirrors, because that's a very frequently done mistake. That should be there all the time. So that should be there whether you're here, whether you're here on top, you're pulling means or doing turns at 180, 200 BPM, it does not matter. You should have a uniformed position of the left hand. With the basics aside, now let's talk about a few exercises. So I taught you jhala, and one thing about the jhala is that a very commonly done mistake is that the last stroke of the jhala always sounds a lot less than the others, the first two. So as a demonstration, I'm actually doing the opposite. So as you can see, it has a slight wave kind of, so it's not equal. My Gurujis, I have the same problem, and my teachers told me that when you play jhala, one of the most important things that you should be looking forward to is all the strokes on the chikari, it has to be exactly the same. So as an example, so no matter how fast you go, and it's very tempting to go fast at jhala, but I keep on restraining you from that, and I keep on telling you the speed will come at some point, but clarity, that you should not be compromising with at all. So one thing about jhala is I want you to notice and observe if all the strokes, especially the 3 strokes on the chikari, if they sound absolutely the same. If they don't, you know what to do. Keeping that aside, now we come to for example, the sargam practice. So when you do the sargam practice, one of the things that you're going to notice is that you're going to have a staccato. What is a staccato? A staccato basically means sticky notes. So it's not resonating to its full extent, rather it's sa, re, ga, ma, pa. This is one of the most basic mistakes, basic flaws that we are going to have while we are starting. So it might sound something like, and that's very normal, but it should sound like, here's where you're going to use the metronome. So first and foremost, as I told you on the first basic lessons, that you should, while you stroke, 20% of that impact should be on the jaw string, and the rest of, or the 80% tentative, is going to be absorbed by the main string. So when you hit that stroke, while you change and there's a tiny little break, the jaw is still going to be there. So it's going to create an illusion that there was no stops in between. That's firstly. Secondly, when you think you have that done, and that you should be practicing when you're practicing the right hand strokes. So when that's done, you should be able to, you should be looking, you should be observing that you spend an equal amount of time and not rushing when you shift every note. So you're going to shift only when the time of that beat is right about to end and not rush in between. So with that out of the way, now coming to the intermediate lessons that we have been doing. Mead. So starting with the mead, you're going to have confusions when you start the 1 fret mead. So the couple of mistakes or the couple of problems that usually appear when you do this is that you either have aches over here, or you have this kind of pain on your middle finger. So that happens at times, uh, but that's something that you don't really need to worry about. One thing that you need to do is that one thing that you need to do when that happens is that you need to adjust this left hand. So as I told you that the muscle groups in your fingers they're very small. So when you pull through the fingers, what happens is all your impact is absorbed by your fingers, and that puts a lot of stress in. We don't want that. Instead, what we are going to do is we're going to use the thumb as a pivot point and pull through the shoulders like this. So you can call it, I feel that I am pulling or controlling my entire arm with my shoulders, but you might get confused. In that case, I'd say that pull through your elbows through here. So kind of like this. Okay. So this can be a little difficult to master. It's something that you should be thinking when you are playing mirrors, but it's not something that you have to master within one day. It can take its time to come. If you think that you're ready with that, now it's time to add gamak to your sargam. Before I add gamak, I clear the air about using gamaks in your sargam, which I just introduced in the last lesson. We are going to understand further how gamak works. So I already have an episode on gamak, but I'm going to show you a recap anyways. So the secret to gamaks has 2 points. One, the area of the wave that you're trying to produce, that so there has to be a limit to that, and accuracy of the notes. So for example, if I'm going to pull a gamak from re and ga, so the gamak is going to be on ga. First, I need to put a marker on where the ga is. So let's do that first. So I believe that this is the right kind of ga I'm looking for, and I don't want to cross this. So I have to have a mental map of the gamak, of the ga that I want to play, and I am not going to cross that at all. So once that is done, what we are going to do is so the timing of the strokes is really crucial. So as I explained with the example of an ambulance, so you see I stroke both the strokes, both the da and the ra. I'm actually stroking on re and then pulling later. So if I play it faster, and if you think that you have cleared that out, now you're ready to add gamak to your sargam, the only sargam you have, which is common mistake while you play this sargam, and this is starting to get more intense, more advanced. So the gamak over here, you have to listen to me the way I play it, and then kind of try to mimic it, because it can take a long time to learn how to do it perfectly. So as you can see, I'm doing a bit of complex stuff over here. It's not just the regular gamaks. So if I decipher, it's pa da ni sa ni da pa. So I play the ni and then I come back to sa and then I play dha and then pa. So this is just an example that I'm showing you. Eventually I'm going to explain it further down. So you don't have to get it perfect. I'm just showing you what it should be. But right now your goal should be to get all these three notes right. So make sure the taraf respond. So I believe that I have covered everything till now that we have learned, that the confusions might appear. If you're still confused, of course do write to me and I would love that. But besides that, I don't think these things are exceptionally difficult. I don't think it's anything impossible. If I can do it, you can do it too. See you on the next class. Till then, practice hard. Happy Diaz.